Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with a Martial Artist. I'm very fortunate today to have learned from none other than Sam Creasey, the current Oktagon flyweight champ, formerly Cage Warriors champ 2 times. He's a professional MMA fighter, currently ranked number 1 in the UK as a professional flyweight, number 2 in Europe. We'll have to bump that number up soon, no doubt. But he is a fantastic guy, really generous with his time and some of the techniques that he's been teaching us. We talk about all sorts of things in terms of his mindset, progression, some of the things he focuses on. So really interesting chat, very grateful for him. You can check out all of the links in the description to follow him. But without further ado, I will let you enjoy the podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. All right, Sam, thank you very much for taking the time up and for the class, especially. I was just saying, really enjoyed that. My pleasure. I've been quite excited, we were just saying a second ago off camera, been excited to come down for one of these sessions for a while. I know you teach here. Is it once a month you're down here?
Yeah, once a month, like a half of a seminar, but just try and give them a lot of content on what has helped me over the years and that. And, then they can hopefully put it into their classes, and then once we get to a really good level on all the basics that I like to use for wrestling, wall wrestling, that kind of thing, then I can start to like turn that into something like a little bit
Keep
more
building
specific
on it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And do you normally do sort of wall wrestling as a focus, or do you sort of mix it up? What's your preference? Because I know you're very MMA, so.
So generally, like wrestling heavy, a lot of it has to be wall wrestling. I mean, this gym here, they've got great grappling already. They've got good striking already. What they're missing is the middle ground, which is the wrestling and the transitioning from striking to grappling. So that's what I try to help them on. And like I've helped myself over the years by doing a lot of wall wrestling and just kind of figuring it out by myself, going to other gyms, sparring with other guys and that. And hopefully I'm able to pass on as much knowledge as I can now.
Oh, that's really cool. So did you you force a lot of your wall wrestling stuff from just experience, like just getting in there and having a go?
Pretty much.
I love
Pretty
that.
much. Yeah, it was not a great deal of it has been learned, if you like. It was just, I mean, I've wrestled a lot over the years within my own gym and that, but when I used to go up to Renegade in Birmingham back in the day when they were at the old gym, and it would be Mondays wall wrestling day. We'd just get in there, we'd have 5 or 6 rounds, different partners and that, and go.
Figure it out.
Yeah. We're gonna work out what works, what doesn't work, and then you kind of get a sense of what works for different shaped bodies, different style of wrestlers, different strengths, different weaknesses, and now I'm passing it on to these guys, passing it on to my own guys, other gyms and that, and then they can then have their own kind of style of that same kind of wrestling, because what works for me obviously is not going to work for everybody. So that's my like giving back here.
Well, it's really cool because I think wall wrestling is one of the big things that it's much more commonplace now, but only really in like proper full-time established gyms like here and stuff like that. So I find it really interesting because it's an element, like I was saying to you, I very rarely touch on it. It's only if I go to a seminar or I drop into a full-time gym or whatever. And now you see places like you said, Mondays is wall wrestling class, and it's now almost its own component, whereas before it used to be, here's MMA striking, here's your striking and you mix in a takedown here and there. But the whole element of wall wrestling I find super interesting because the level's getting higher and higher and higher now, you see.
I think it has to, and it's not, if you wanted to train martial arts as such and you're more of a hobbyist, wall wrestling's probably not going to be one of the top top things on your list, because it's just not as entertaining, not as fun to do. It's pretty much it's pretty much a grind to get through. It's quite boring, it's quite tough, and it requires a lot of push to get people motivated to carry on doing it. Whereas like you could hit the pads, you can do sparring in tight. That's
way
fun.
more fun.
Yeah, I want to go and do that. You can go and grapple, you can go drill and then grapple. That's way more fun. Even just straight like freestyle wrestling. it's much more explosive, it's much more entertaining. Wall wrestling is horrible, like you're against the cage the whole time, somebody's head is in your face, in your chin, you're getting stuffed all over the place and getting slammed on the floor every couple of minutes. So it's really important for MMA, but I can see like why it doesn't kind of,
it's not so
garner as
mainstream.
much. It doesn't get as much interest because naturally just not as nice.
It can be a bit miserable to super fun though, super interesting if you're into that, if you don't mind having your face smushed into a cage. That's all right. But obviously it has such a huge impact on you as a competitor, like it's such a huge element. I've always just found that super interesting.
Yeah.
But I'd be really interested, because now that you've said that, you have me wondering, because you very much sort of just through trial and error and forged it that way. What is your general martial arts background? Because I know you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu and things like that, but where did you actually start from there?
Nowhere. Like I don't have a background in martial arts. Finished playing rugby when I was 21, I think, maybe a little bit younger. My brother dragged me down to some boxing sessions, which weren't really boxing sessions.
Yeah,
in a snooker hall, just kind of like a couple of guys tearing lumps out of each other, which was all right.
It's like Fight Club.
And then he dragged me down to an MMA gym that just opened in like the local area. A young guy had opened it. A couple of us in there, not really any idea what we're kind of doing, and that is pretty much my start. I didn't really have a background in anything apart from like I liked playing rugby for a bit.
Wow.
I liked physical contact, and I liked the challenge, but no fighting or combat experience.
Wow.
So then this was by accident,
MMA,
you know, which has helped me in the long run, because it means that I don't really have anywhere where I consider I have a weakness. But then I've fought against guys who have obviously been specialists in all the areas, and they are going to be better than me, let's say striking or grappling. I'll just keep it somewhere else.
You've got that
in order to gain the advantage there. So I don't really have a background as such. My background is MMA.
See, that's super interesting, because I was watching some of your fights before, and I always sort of assumed you did have some sort of like traditional, particularly with your stand-up, because everything you do is really like crisp and technical, and you're very like springy, and it looks very like you've had that hardwired in since a kid. I assumed you were one of these Karate Kid types that did it when you were like 3, and then you're a black belt by 6 or whatever. I always I'd guessed that, but I wouldn't have guessed that you went straight into it.
No. I probably should have done something like that when I was younger, and I've found like martial arts has been pretty much like my second calling in life, if you like. It's really where my education started. I felt like this is what I was probably missing all through my school years, my education, and that I could have really used this to help me to focus on other things in life as well, but to mold me and give me discipline and like respect as well. But just straight into MMA and created different styles. If you watched me spar when I first started, it would look completely different from
so cool.
how I move now. It was like I said, boxing in the snooker hall. Barely any footwork, throwing haymakers.
You're just swinging,
hoping for the best. But we've become more nuanced over the years, and part of that has been through sparring with different people, getting my ass kicked on a regular basis, and then going to different places, dealing with different styles and figuring out I have no idea what I'm really doing until I get a certain way through my career and go, okay, there's a little click. Actually, I'm not anything, I'm adaptable. That's what I am. So I've got a little bit of boxing, a little bit of taekwondo, a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of dance, a little bit of footwork.
I get it.
So I can put everything together in my own style, and sometimes it works really well. Sometimes.
Well, it's worked very well for you, to be fair, mate. 3 times world champ. Yeah. So I mean, that's a pretty good testament to it working. But it is interesting because you're very like relaxed and composed. Like you really have that element of like natural, like the calm to it that you still even, I mean, professional fighters obviously have that much more than any like amis or even regular people, but you more so than anyone have always looked quite relaxed and composed in it. I'm just curious, is that something that's just happened organically? Is that like a personality thing? Is that something you work on?
I think it's like part of it is always like my self-reflection, if you like. I don't really look at any fight as you know, like a big deal. If I win, like if I lose, obviously I'm quite upset. But
yeah, sure.
Even if I win, I'm very upset usually because I can only focus on negatives. So when I do win, my mind is instantly focused on why did you do this? How come you did this? Why did this go wrong? How can we correct this fault? How can I deal with this? And it's very similar to, like, I think when I'm preparing for a fight, walking out to the cage, I can hear the crowd going, I can hear the excitement from everybody, but I don't really feel it too much. I'm used to just like I'm focused on the task at hand, and you know, we've been preparing for a long time to do this. I have that a little doubt usually earlier in the day, where you know your brain is trying to play tricks on you, sort of thing, convincing you, why are you doing this? Stop this, go home and sit on the sofa and eat.
This is not good for you.
Why are you doing this? And then I'll just talk myself through it, you know, like think what you've achieved, think what you've done over the years, think how many occasions you've, you know, overcome the odds and come back and prove people wrong. And that is pretty much, it just gives me the confidence to go in there as relaxed as I can. Sometimes too relaxed, but it seems to have helped me over the years to just stay calm under pressure, kind of see what's coming at me, deal with it, and find a way to adapt and overcome the odds.
Yeah, I think the composure is such a like underrated thing, because there are, like, you can absolutely win fights by just being an absolute brute and like just boom, 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 boom. But the composure element there is something to be said. And again, I think that part of feeds into me thinking you're some lifelong martial artist, which you should take as a compliment. It looks very natural. But yeah, I'm always interested as to how much of a difference that composure makes versus, you know, because people say, like, you know, get angry, fucking get his face and things like that. Have you played with like different mental strategies going into stuff like that?
I used to try to G myself up a lot when I was younger. I used to bark before I go out, like thinking like you should be getting like in this state of mind, and I'm going to kill this guy and all of that shit. And it didn't really work for me very well. I've found over the years, just going in there nice and calm, nice and composed, being sharp, being switched on enough to be ready for what's about to come at me. But then even between rounds, I'm listening to my coaches and that, but I'll be watching their corner, seeing if the guy's sitting down, if he's having a rest. One of the things I've prided myself on over the years is I've never taken a seat in between rounds. I mean, why would I need to? Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah.
I don't need to take a seat between rounds. Why should I be so tired? But that's also a very similar reason why I haven't celebrated a fight really. But I expect to win. Yeah. Why does it come as a shock? You know, I've got no reason to scream, jump around. I'm going to go thank my coaches, thank the opponent for the fight, but there's no reason for it to be a big deal apart from, you know, all right, I'm going home safe. Yeah, that's what's a big deal.
Yeah, that's what you turned up for.
I expect to win. You know, if I don't go into a fight confident, I probably shouldn't be fighting.
Fair enough. You know? Yeah, you want to go in assuming you've won.
I go into every fight expecting to win. And that's what comes as no shock to me, and there's no need for a big celebration afterwards.
See, funnily enough, I was going to ask you the same thing, because again, feeding into the composure thing, I've seen on your fights, you fit like, I can't remember the guy's name, but in the first round, pretty quickly, you knocked him down and then guillotined him.
Oh, yes.
I think the Cage Warriors, I can't remember what it was.
Stipe Miocic.
Yes, that's the guy. But straight up,
little bow, chilled, off you go. Whereas you see people lose their shit, they're throwing gum shields on the cage and like jumping up and stuff like that. And it always interests me, the mindset more so than anything, because I'm going to be some world champion fighter, you know. But it's interesting to hear how you approach those things, and that is something I did notice with you, which I really liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think those like, for example, my last fight with Aaron Adam, I feel it. Yeah, I feel it. Why am I going to go and enjoy somebody else's pain in this moment? You know, when especially with Aaron, like I see everything he's been through his life and that. Like, the last thing I'm going to do is celebrate in his face and that. I'll be there with him in the moment, because in the moment I know that a fight can go one way or go the other way.
Yeah.
You know, it could be me laying on the canvas afterwards, hating the fucking world and asking and questioning like why I'm still doing this. That's why I don't know if it's compassion or just I can feel like a bond with them in it. So it's something that I've always done. I don't think I've ever really had any kind of issue with a fighter outside the cage or after a fight particularly.
Yeah, like some mad animosity.
Nah, I've got no reason to hate these people. They do what I'm doing every day, trying to beat the person who's in front of them, trying to be the best they can possibly be. And in their lowest moments and in their highest moments, I know both of those feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a hard one, I suppose, because it just interests me how people tackle that, because some people can be right dicks. And I'm like, I always think like, oh God, if you're that guy, like, you know, you just got tapped, that your friends, your family, the world's watching, and you're like, oh, I've just got tapped or knocked out or whatever. And then there's some dickhead who's like, he's shouting in your face. I'd be like, oh mate.
I get it. Sometimes the emotions spill over, but I'm just not. I'm too calm in those moments anyway. Like, if I've been cracked, I'm gonna be afterwards like, well done, mate.
Yeah.
I've lost a fight before.
Yeah.
And I've seen my opponent afterwards celebrating with his friends, and his friends, like his brothers and that, be like, oh, shh. I'm like, nah, this is your moment.
Yeah, enjoy it.
This is your moment. You know, like, I appreciate you saying that, but please don't. This is your moment to celebrate, to shine. You know, like, great fight. I'll see you again.
Yeah, try again next time. Yeah, fair enough. And then, so one thing I did want to ask you about is how you find fighting in the sort of lower weight divisions. And I'm pivoting off a little bit, but I always find the sort of lower weight divisions to be the most interesting, because I think this the technical standard is probably the highest, because everyone's so fucking rapid, and like, you've got to be real technical. Like, you can get away with a lot at heavyweight of just fucking swinging a heavy hand at someone, right?
Yeah.
But do you find that experience, or is that something from the outside, like as an outside watcher?
I do find that, you know, the lighter guys tend to be, I don't want to say more skilled, but have to be more technical in their fights, because we rely less upon athleticism.
Yeah, there has to be, right?
And then there's the entertainment factor. You know, like, a hardcore fan will enjoy the flyweight, bantamweight fights, because they're more interesting from a technical aspect. You can see the little nuances that are happening in the fights, and like a really brilliant scenario or a scramble, you can see all the stuff that's happening in there. Whereas if you're not, you're more a casual fan, of course you want to see the heavyweights. Of course you want to see, maximum damage. You want to see the biggest knockouts. You don't want to see two smaller guys hitting each other a lot, but nobody necessarily going down. You know, and a lot of stuff happening on the ground, in the wrestling. That to me is really interesting to watch. But as a heavyweight, you want to see two guys just swinging for each other and one of them going out.
Fair enough, I guess. When you're training for your fights then, do you train exclusively with sort of similar weight classes, or do you train sort of all over? Because I've heard varying opinions on this.
So when I was younger, I trained with absolutely everybody. I used to train with all my heavyweights, like a fucking dumbass.
But I think I know the rest of it.
As I've got older, I've had to change that slightly. You know, injuries do happen. I still train with heavier people generally, but I have to just be a little bit careful of who it is, how hard we're training, and then is my body willing to keep up with the energy that I'm putting out? Because when I was younger, it didn't give a fuck. It didn't really matter. You throw me over here, I'm going to get back up and still carry on. But now, like, some of the knocks, they take a little bit longer to heal. It's partly because of age, but partly just because I've probably abused my body so much when I was younger. Just, yep, you're hanging off my neck, that's fine, I'm still alive, that's okay, carry on, get around that, right? Oh good, he gave up holding on to me, okay, I can win.
Yeah, well, now we're good. I suppose the rugby can't help with that either. That's quite damage intensive. If that was your choice of sport before MMA, you picked maybe the two worst.
Yeah. I was quite a small player in rugby as well. So.
Yeah, I imagine you take some
damage
there. Yeah. And for you're flyweight, aren't you? Have you always been flyweight, or have you played around with weight classes?
As an amateur, I fought between bantamweight and I think I fought a lightweight as well.
Okay.
But that was when there was very, very few people around on the scene, if you like, and I didn't really understand the scene. Didn't really know what weight cutting was at the time. I think I've had one fight at bantamweight as a pro against Chris Edwards, and then the rest of them have been flyweight. Yeah.
And so do you, I'm assuming you must like flyweight as a weight. Is it a hard weight cut for you? Are you a big weight cutter, or?
I wouldn't say I'm a big weight cutter. I understand my body much better now than I did when I was starting out as a pro. I missed weight a few times there, while I was kind of just figuring out the best way to cut. Making less mistakes now. And my body kind of knows what it's doing now. It just drops a bit of fat over a fight camp, and then I get down to the last week, 2 weeks, then I actually lose some significant weight. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a big weight cutter. My weight really doesn't fluctuate throughout the year. I pretty much stay around 64, 65 kilos. And it's just used to the weight cut now. But I'd say, like, I could fight at bantamweight. It'd probably be healthier for me to fight at bantamweight, but I'm not world class at bantamweight.
Sure.
I'm a fighter at bantamweight. I can fight at that weight. I'll win a few, I'll lose a few. But at flyweight, I'm world class. So.
Yeah, and I guess it's something I guess you'll feel better fighting at one weight versus another.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that anything that you'd consider sort of further down the line, do you reckon? Would you go towards the bantamweight way, or do you think you'll stick to flyweight until you're done with it?
I did think about moving up to bantamweight before. I've thought about it again since, but I really think like flyweight seems to be, for me, the shape of my body, the size I am naturally, that's where I should be.
And it's working well for you, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was quite recently you went to Oktagon, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just the one fight you've had there. You've got another one coming up, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. That's your first title defence.
Yeah.
Is that next month? I can't remember when.
Yeah, February 22nd.
Perfect. So are you in camp at the moment?
Yeah.
Beautiful. How's that going?
As good as it ever does. The camp doesn't really change from my regular training. Just
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Intention intention changes.
Yeah.
So out of camp, I'll play more in grappling from my back. I won't care about as many takedowns being got on me. And I'll be much stricter with my sparring now. I'll be trying not to get into combinations, if you like. I'll be staying on the outside, looking for space, looking not to get hit ever. When I'm wrestling, I'll be making sure I don't give away a takedown, and if I do, I'm already back on my feet before they've had a chance to settle. If we're grappling on the ground, I've probably got top position. The only time I've not is if I'm practicing a scenario where we're going bad positions, get back to a good position. Okay. So all the changes really is the intent.
Ah, that's interesting. So you keep the same sort of levels of training sessions and things like that?
Yeah.
But it's just what you actually focus on in them.
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah, because I've heard people do it various ways where people are just chilling for like
Yeah.
2 months and then they're like, all right, time to grind, and then they
Yeah.
go mental.
No, well, I've probably got a diagnosis of ADHD,
Sure.
which is probably why I train quite as much as I do,
I get you.
which means I never fucking switch off.
That makes sense, yeah.
So all that changes is the intent, and like the intensity might come up for a couple of the sessions, but I
Yeah.
train pretty fucking hard anyway. So
Yeah, because
fit
that's
for
the other
anyway.
thing I'm interested about is like when you do the hard rounds,
Mm.
would you be doing that outside of camp as well? But you just have like a day set or whatever it might be?
Some of the time. Generally, that would be if I had to help other people for fights that are
Okay,
coming
right.
up and stuff. I want to still be sharp, but there'd be less emphasis on me then,
Yeah.
and it's all about them. So who can I replicate for you?
Right.
What style can I bring to the table here that's going to give you the right prep?
Mm.
So now it's about me.
Yeah.
And before it's about
Yeah, that's it. You got
that's
to
the only thing that
get your
changes as
turn.
well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair enough. And then I'm conscious of time for you. I know
That's
you've
fine,
got to shoot off fairly soon, but I'm curious about your sort of amateur to professional journey, because you've had a ton of professional fights now. It's 30 something, I want to say. Any idea?
Mid-20s, I would say.
Oh, really? Okay.
Something like that.
Fine. Yeah. But I'm curious as to when you decide to go pro, because this is a conversation I've had with a few people recently. Was there like a turning point for you, or was it just a natural progression?
I was pushed by my wife,
Okay.
my family. I wasn't going to turn pro. Turning pro was really nothing back then, if I'm honest.
Right.
Like, it was just a change in rule set.
Okay.
I mean, it's slightly more significant now, but back then, like, you'd kind of just maybe turn pro if it was the right decision for you at that point in your career, if everything else outside fighting was working for you. I was pushed into doing so by my wife, the rest of my family, training partners, obviously coaches, who said this was probably like, it's a good decision for you to make. Like, I'd won 5-6 titles as an amateur. I fought most of the top guys in the amateur scene that I could possibly fight against, and I felt pretty good, but I was never like thinking like, oh yeah, right, now I'm going to turn pro and do all of these things. No, that's just how life was figured out.
Yeah. That's interesting. And so how long were you fighting amateur then?
Probably 5 years.
Okay.
Probably 5 years, I'd say. I fought a lot in the first 2 years, and then things slowed down with my experience made it harder to get fights, obviously.
Right, okay.
And at the time, I was just kind of figuring stuff out, like, because we didn't have a coach, we were coming from a gym in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, really?
It was, okay, how do we get fights?
Yeah.
How do we go and find competitions? How do we do this? So I found a thing called the Cage Warriors Forum, looked on there, had myself on Facebook, finding these find a fight groups. And then we fought in Leeds, fought in Jersey, fought in Manchester, Newcastle. Never the home guy until we had Battle Arena in Northampton. And even then, I think I fought somebody who's from Northampton.
It takes the
Maybe
fun out of it.
Yeah. But it was a learning curve. It took a long time to kind of figure it all out. Which is, even as I was turning pro, I was still figuring it out. I was still training like an amateur.
Oh, that's interesting. So was there a point then in your career where you were like, right, I've got to look at training more somewhere else, like with a coach, or was the whole thing like developed organically?
Pretty much organically, if I'm honest. Like, I've had striking coaches. I've got a guy called Rich who's with me most of the time now. He's helped me advance my striking over the years. Vaughan Lee, when I've trained with him ever, has always changed my mindset about striking a lot. I've got Kev Capel and Dan Lewis who do my grappling all the time. My brother-in-law Steve does my wrestling. But then I always think like, probably I'm still the main coach, looking over, trying to like critique myself as much as possible and try and like put direction to all of the stuff that's like I'm trying to do in a fight camp, if you like. The only difference I would say is just having more emphasis on what I'm trying to achieve with each fight camp, with each training session, having like goals.
Right.
When I was an amateur, even as a pro, probably 6 fights in, I was still training like an amateur who was just turning up for training sessions.
Okay.
Now I like to have a goal, what I'm trying to achieve for each training session. Whereas outside camp, that can be, right, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Inside camp, it might be as simple as don't get taken out.
Right. Okay.
It can be as simple as that. Yeah.
And so you're saying that the difference with when you were training as an amateur, you'd literally just go turn up, do a class of, right, we're going to do however many rounds on the bag, some sparring, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Okay, so you changed the intent to what you're actually focused on. That's super interesting. And was that well into your pro career that you sort of started to change that, or was that something that
probably
you sort
6
of...
fights, I think.
Right.
I think it was my 6th pro fight. I changed. Instead of just turning up for classes and just training, which was good as well. That was getting me really good.
Well,
It was just I needed more focus on what I want to achieve and the goals for each training session.
And so do you adapt much about how you train now then based on your opponents? Because obviously all the opponents you're going to have are much more high level and there's much more out there about them.
I'd like to say yes, but that's a lie. I ask my coaches to look at them.
Yeah.
In the training sessions, like they will give me stuff that is going to be like specific towards that guy, but we're not necessarily going to talk about it as such. I'm just going to train the way I always train, but with a few goals that I want to achieve for those training sessions, because I found like if I focus on somebody else, I'm not focusing on me.
Right.
I'm worrying about, all of their skill set instead of thinking about mine. So I should always be aware of those things, but it's top level fucking pro fight. he's going to crack me or he's going to take me down and submit me. Yeah. If I'm well prepped in all those areas, then I'm going to beat most guys that come across.
Beautiful, and have to your credit. All right, fair enough. Well, I appreciate your time, Sam. I'll let you get on because I know the guys are trying to leave and close up. But where is the best place for people listening to follow you and check you out? Obviously, you've got your fight coming up, so make sure people are supporting on there. But where's the best place for you?
So if you hit me on Instagram, you'll find me on there, Samurai Creasey.
Dope nickname, by the way. I fucking love that.
People still ask, what the fuck is an Urai?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'm
Use
sorry.
your brain, man.
I'm in Instagram, on X, on Facebook. Hit me up somewhere. Tune into my fights. Hopefully I'll be entertaining, and February 22nd, bring back that title.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you very much for your time, Sam. I really appreciate it and for the class. And I'll make sure everything's in the link for people to follow you and check out the fights. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that. Sam is a super cool guy. Be sure to support him. You can check out the links if you want to go and train with him. Feel free to come down to Striking Clinic in Banbury as well, where he teaches his monthly seminar. That's where I was fortunate enough to meet and learn from him. But all of the links to his various pages are in the description. Make sure to buy tickets to his next fight. Tune in, watch it. It looks exciting. Coming up fairly soon after this podcast is released, which is exciting. Please don't forget to support the podcast as well. If you're enjoying this, you can rate it on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Spotify, all at CWAMA Podcast. Until the next time, we'll see you there.